The burning of the Korans inadvertently by the military obviously is causing some great, great pain in Afghanistan. It seems like everything, if anything, has been gained there in the last 10 years. This is where we are right now. No one knows it better than this man from Brave New Films, Robert Greenwald. Mr. Greenwald, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Ed. Good to be with you.
You can follow Robert at Robert Greenwald on Twitter. What do you make of this back and forth? The president has apologized to the Afghan people and the government for what happened, the burning of the Korans, which has sparked days and days of violence and killings in Afghanistan in the wake of all of this.
Well, obviously, it's a horrible, tragic situation. We're not surprised to see Santorum try to make hay of it. But, listening to his statement, he's like tripping all over himself. I don't mean to laugh, but it's quite ridiculous. Don't apologize, but it was a mistake. Say it was a mistake, but don't call that an apology. So he's desperately looking for a way to attack the president, and yet even he understands that this war is so fundamentally unpopular that left, right, center, almost nobody except a few neocons really want this war. And what we're seeing is, just so tragic with the loss of so many additional lives, and the whole policy of leaving behind small numbers of American troops is now going to be called into question.
Well, that's the next question. I mean, could this really speed up our departure from Afghanistan?
Yes. It certainly can, and as there have been several in-detail articles in the New York Times, LA Times, and elsewhere, quoting the infamous inside sources, and usually they're at least a reasonable level, and they're saying, yeah, there's been a big argument within the administration, we should move quicker, and what we're seeing now only affirms the problem, and you and I have been talking about this for almost 2 years now, Ed, the fundamental problem, which is we don't have a partner there that we can work with, and we went in to do nation building, not prepared for it, not planning for it, and not knowing enough about the cultural sensitivities and what the people need, which is not occupying. We know what they need. They need jobs, they need health care, they need education, and sadly we haven't provided that. But Santorum's effort to make hay of this is, of course, more of what we're seeing in his campaign.
There's no question about it that this is stoked a firestorm there in Afghanistan that I don't think we're going to be able to recover from.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, these are riots all over the country, in parts of the country that are friendly to us. The horrible killing that was done inside Kabul, where I went and visited and researched for our Think Afghanistan campaign, inside a secure ambassadorship in Kabul. They were able to pull this off. So, it's questionable what kind of policy we can have and how we can get out of there sooner rather than later.
Well, how are we going to be able to do anything effective for the people? And we're nation building, let's face it. We are nation building. We're going from tribe to tribe, trying to make a difference, wasting billions of dollars under the auspice of security, are we not?
Oh, totally. And the problem is, it's exactly what you say, under the auspices of security. I mean, let's just think about it for a minute. Let's just dream. We sent in 120,000 troops. Let's say we sent in 120,000 teachers and educators and healthcare workers, just for a minute. Or we sent in people to help train about jobs. It would be a totally different scenario. But think about it. People came and occupied our country and said, hey, we're here to help you. We know what's good for you. We know the right way you should be. And then you have a country that's huge percentage is illiterate. It's a tribal culture. And there's just no way that the militarization of these problems is going to work out, because they're not military problems.
You go into these villages in Afghanistan, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're just happy to get the water running.
Oh,
we're talking primitive living here.
Yeah. Yes, 80 to 85% of Afghanistan is tribal and primitive living, with under 50 people in those communities, I believe is the statistic. And there is no way that sending in troops and then the night raids, which have become a big issue, busting in the middle of the night, arresting people, killing people, and it's a culture that's very, very much family-based. So every time you, in quote, inadvertently kill one person, he or she has 10, 20, 50, 75 cousins and relatives that we've now made enemies for life. That's not making us safer, and that's certainly not helping the people of Afghanistan. And that's been the flaw of this policy from day one. This is not making us safer, and we've spent insane amounts of money and the lives of Americans and Afghani in the process.
What are we spending there on a weekly basis?
Oh boy, it's supposedly coming down now, but we will spend. I mean, it's been billions and billions of dollars over there, in which, get this, the Pentagon is not even able to measure how much we're spending there because the Pentagon, talk about too large to fail, is not able to provide the auditors with accurate numbers, which has been a big source of conflict in Washington D.C., where some of the folks who are very responsible.
So we don't even know what we don't even know what we're spending.
No, we can't get an exact amount, but it's billions of dollars, and it's hundreds of billions that we've spent. Some people say it'll be close to $1 trillion that we will have spent when you factor in the direct cost, when you factor in the private contractors who are larger in number than the troops, when you factor in the number of servicemen and women who've been injured, who will be cared for the rest of their lives. Those are astounding numbers.
We do know one thing. If our troops weren't there, we wouldn't have had a burning of the Koran.
Well, that's exactly right. And where it was burned and was what's called the burn pit. Now, we studied this for our Iraq war, the Iraq for Sale war. Burn pits are very large pits, some of them the size of football fields. And you know what they're doing? They're burning equipment. They're burning things that we sent over there that they don't want to leave or leave behind, which is, again, an insane amount of money. But, right, if we weren't there, if there had not been an occupation, and if had not grown up this terrible hatred between the American troops and the Afghanis, which is the other problem that this raises. We are theoretically training the troops there, training the local policemen, but as each and every report we're seeing is coming out is saying there's very, very bad will between both sides now.
Robert Greenwald, Brave New Films, what are you working on now? What's your team doing now, Robert?
Well, we are working on, as we have been for a while, the Koch brothers. And if you go to Koch Brothers Exposed or by Facebook or Twitter, we have finished 9 investigative pieces showing them behind a series of things that you're aware of, but also many things that you're not aware of. Resegregation in North Carolina, giving literally Georgia Pacific, which they own, giving people cancer in a small community in the South, how they're fighting against Social Security, how they're buying the House Energy Committee. So we have those pieces, and we're putting together the full-length film, which will be ready at the end of March, and we're very excited to help get that out to the world at a really important time for people to know and hear about it.
I'm looking forward to that. That is going to be, you're doing vitally important work. It's just amazing how intertwined the Kochs are when it comes to manipulation of the government and trying to sway people's opinion on things, and just in some cases complete manipulation.
Yeah, complete manipulation and funding. And, they fund media, they fund pundits, they fund think tanks, they fund elected officials, they fund grassroots organizers. To their credit, they're very smart about funding across the spectrum. They don't just fund, like some of our folks do, lousy 30-second spots for somebody at the last minute.
Yeah. Robert, great to have you with us. Robert Greenwald, Brave New Films, bravenewfilms.org, correct?
Yes.
Very good. bravenewfilms.org. They do fabulous work. You can follow them on Twitter at Robert Greenwald.